I got a question if you guys don't mind.
What you got, man? What's the business?
I was curious. I was kind of curious. I know this is like a super broad question, but what would it take for you guys to change your minds about the shape of the Earth?
See the whole Earth all at once.
Well, if it's a sphere, you couldn't see both. I'm assuming you're saying like from a distance,
If
right?
it's flat, you couldn't do it either. So
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to see the underside of it. Sure.
you couldn't see the whole thing up top anyway. It's too big.
Well, I mean, hypothetically, you could get far enough away, right?
No.
Why not?
Only in the globe paradigm is that a thing. This
Yeah,
is
no,
this is why
I'm
they
curious. Yeah.
this is why they had to go to the moon. This is why they had to show you. They had to show you what the Earth was so that you couldn't question it. But you can't do that. You can't see the whole Earth. That's why it's so effective.
Yeah, why do you think it's literally impossible to see the entirety? Like, it sounds like
It's too
hypothetically it's
big.
impossible.
It's too big and you can't go that high. Like nobody goes higher than what, like 60 miles ish? You can't go that high.
Like, are you saying practically in reality it's impossible? Or are you saying hypothetically it's impossible?
I mean, I'll just say this, man. Of all the people who have ever
Yeah.
tried going to space or going high up, whether they are part of conspiracy or not, there's no information about going higher than like 60, 70 miles. So if you use that as your starting place, you know what I mean? You got to use some reasoning here.
Well, I mean, just because we're like, 200 years ago we couldn't fly, it doesn't mean it was impossible to fly back then, right? Like, I'm just curious, why would
No.
you
I
say?
agree with you. I think they had like balloons and stuff. I think they had, you know, ability to go high, but not to the extent of which we're speaking about.
Yeah, of course. You go 1,000 years back, you couldn't go up except for like in a wooden tower or stone tower, right? Like 300 meters or something like that. But I'm curious what you meant by you could never get far, like you would never be able to see the whole thing because it's too big. Like
Yeah.
I can imagine hypothetically, like something that is 10,000 miles across. If it was a far enough distance away and it was
Uh-huh.
bright enough, I would be able to see it, right? Like
Well, okay, if it
there's
was
no
a
like
globe, right?
physics.
If it was a
No,
globe,
no, I'm talking about
right?
like a flat object, just a flat
Yeah,
object,
well,
like
hold on,
anything.
hold on, hold on, hold on.
Sure,
If
go
it
ahead.
was a globe, right? And it was the globe that you were expecting, it would be 10,000 miles across, okay? Or I'm sorry, it would be about 8,000 miles across, sorry.
Sure.
And you wouldn't be able to see the whole earth without being what, like 15, 20,000 miles away? Like you would
It's
have to
quite a lot.
be,
You're never actually
yeah,
able to
you'd
see
have
the
to
whole half.
be really far away to see the whole earth, right? But
Sure.
on the flat earth, dude, like I think the best apparent estimate is what, like 3,000 miles for the sky object, like the sun and the moon or something. And then for the stars, something like 5,000 ish miles. But these are apparent places. So I'm not even sure if that's proper triangulation. So we don't know the real size. We don't know the real position.
Sure. But like,
There's no going up there to see that much anyway. Because one of the things you learn about flat Earth is that everything is like it's apparent, man. It's apparent. So like you realize that the way things look the way they do, it's because of all the different mediums and stuff. So let's say that you were up thousands of miles,
yep.
looking down onto a dense medium, bro. You ever tried being at the top of a pool and like pointing at something in the pool? Good luck. Good luck.
Sure. Sure. It might be distorted to some degree. Sure.
Yeah, a lot degree. 10,000
Uh,
deep pool. Good luck, bro. So what I'm saying is that like the challenge of which you're trying to propose is totally separate because of the nature of the argument. Completely different paradigms.
Well, I wasn't trying to argue anything. I was trying to
Yeah,
ask
no,
you.
I'm helping you understand why it's not even like a thing.
Well, I mean, I think that would bother me a lot if that was my position, because I think it's super valuable to have some mechanism to find errors in what I believe in. And
Yeah, it's all down here. That's why the argument exists. Because everything that we know about down here, you guys use up there as a validity to keep your shit going.
well, no, so like
Everything
then
down
what
here
you would want,
supports our argument.
yeah. So like exactly. So what I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you would want something that's based on the ground to demonstrate that the ground is curving consistently.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so that would be the evidence that you would want.
Well, that's the evidence that we've, been trying to look for. And unfortunately, the globe curve, the globe consistency, the globe arguments, they kind of fall flat. No pun intended.
No, no, that's a good one. You mind if I ask what your opinion is about reciprocal zenith angles?
Reciprocal zenith angles. Um,
Yeah. Do you want me to explain it? Or do you already know about this?
yeah, the idea here is that things dip down in the distance because of, well, at least in this argument, because of perspective. So when you're taking you're taking an angle to the sky and saying that it's actually in that position. I'm saying that it's apparently in that position. And also, the model that you're presuming is based on the fact that these things wouldn't dip down unless it were a geometrical change, as in you're actually traversing a curve of the surface. In my paradigm, it's because the same reasons why um, streetlights go down, but also because of the medium thing that I told you before.
Well, like not all things that are distant go down, right? Because like stars are directly above your head. They're not low, even though they're super far away. So it depends on their relative position to you, right? But maybe that's beside the point. Like, are you saying that perspective will actually make things appear below the level of your eye, even if they're not?
No, that's refraction.
Oh, so you're saying it's refraction
I'm
causing
saying
things
I'm
to be
saying
slightly lower.
you can't like
Go ahead,
remove,
sorry.
okay, individually you can have those properties, right? You can have refraction that obstructs. You can have perspective that obstructs with an elevation change, or perhaps something's an obstruction like a mountain range or something like that. You can have obstruction with all of these different phenomena. The problem is that when you're looking off in the distance, all these things are working in combination. They're working compoundedly together, right? So you're trying to isolate one thing and say it's this. It couldn't be the case. It would have to be that they're all working together. Like, yeah, there could be elevation in the distance. Yeah, there could be a swell in the ocean that's obstructing the sun. Absolutely, there could be the case. It could also just be the case that you're looking through a dense medium of atmosphere, and the light has attenuated because it's too dense, it's too rich to go through at that distance. The sun is escaping you, and the light that's radiating from it is becoming too weak as it's traveling away. So it just doesn't
Yeah,
reach
like
you also. So these things all happen in combination.
sure, I'm fine with whatever explanation you're saying about the sun, but like
But does it make
it,
sense? Does it make sense what I'm saying though?
no, it doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't. Okay, I'll save my words. Have fun.
Oh, you don't want to talk to me?
Well, I mean,
I can explain why it doesn't make
I'd put
sense to
a
me.
lot of work into like using the right language so that someone like yourself could at least make a case to understand our position. I wasn't very wasteful with my words or my time speaking to you. But if you're just going to wait to say the next thing that you want to say without listening, then what am I even doing here? Because I am making sense. And that was a test to see if you're even paying attention.
I mean, it's an opinion that it makes sense, right? Like the globe model doesn't make sense
No,
to you, and a lot of people would
no,
disagree
no,
with
no.
you,
It's not an
right?
opinion. It is
Yeah,
the
it is.
case because I am a flat earther, I'm telling you what is the case of what the argument of
Yeah.
flat earth could be, because I am the source. You're literally talking to the source material. So
Well,
it is the case. Whether or not
a
it's
source,
true
right?
is an argument, but I am the
Yeah, that's
source.
what I'm saying. I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is it doesn't necessarily comport with what we know about reality, right?
I
So,
mean, you've had, you guys are still here. We're still here. I mean, if it were so final, you wouldn't find it that interesting, right?
I'm not sure I follow what you were trying to say there. Mind clarifying?
Which part?
What you're saying, I'm still here, so it seemed to me like you were trying to say, because I'm here, that lends legitimacy to your argument. Was that what you're trying to say?
I'm saying if it were final, this
Sure.
conversation wouldn't be happening.
Like if we had definitive evidence one way or the other.
If you thought, if the mainstream paradigm was a globe, why does this conversation exist?
Because anybody can argue about anything. We all have our own objective opinions about stuff. Just because people disagree doesn't mean that some one particular thing isn't a fact, right?
Yeah, but it's not just because we disagree, though, right? Because there's foundational reasons for it. There's a philosophical bias that we've pointed out. There's evidential biases that we've pointed out. There's presumptive, things that you guys have cooked into the model, like removing whole data sets because they've exceeded the acceptable range because it has to fit within a certain range. There's all kinds of reasons why we're here. It's because you guys have catered things to fit within a particular model. I'm just telling you, like, the pretty basic reasons why it's a legitimate, argument.
I think I get what you're saying there. And what I would say, like, I think a good way of explaining it would be to give you my position on what it would take me to change my mind. Do you mind if I explain that a little bit? I'll take that as a yes. So,
Wait, I didn't hear what you said. It cut out.
oh, I'm sorry about that. So it might take me a second. I apologize if I'm a little long-winded, but a good explanation would be how I would change my mind, right? Like how you could convince me that your position is correct. And what it would take for me is for you guys to produce novel, testable predictions that are as or more accurate than the current predictions that are being given. Because my understanding, there's a couple things that I could talk about, but hopefully you would agree with the idea. We can see something happen and explain it in a literally infinite number of ways. Cup falls over. What explains it? The squirrel, the wind, unicorn. But the thing that best explains it is what can predict something that's going to happen in the future that we don't know of yet and get it right. So, like for the globe model, we can predict
Well,
sunrise,
what's not known
sunset,
already?
eclipses. I mean, that's a pretty novel thing
Some
that
guy.
happens, not recurring.
I mean, I can give you the name of the guy. He lost $10,000 bet because he said that you couldn't actually predict eclipses or something along those lines on a flat Earth.
Do you guys have a model that does that?
Yeah, actually, he mapped out the sun and the moon positions for the last, well, like 10,000 years, 6,000 years or so, and it goes all the
Okay.
way back to when the moon resets. Apparently, that would have been like the beginning of that cycle, about 6,000 years ago. Which is odd because you hear all these, biblical literalists and young Earth creationists and stuff. Literally, if you wind back the moon, it goes back to 6,000 years.
Oh, I get what you're talking about, like young Earth creationist kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just funny. Like that's not my position, but it's funny how that does seem to be the case. But yeah, it's been modeled out on a flat surface, sure.
Okay. And like if that is a thing that can be presented to me, and it comes true that their model is as accurate or more accurate
It's just about the
than the
same, man.
current. Sorry, what was that?
It's just about the same.
Do you know, like, does it predict the path of totality?
I mean, the observation works out the same.
What are you saying, that it literally has the same start time, end time, location, size of eclipse, all that? Literally the same?
Yeah.
I'd be super interested in seeing that.
Yeah, I would too.
Oh, you haven't
That's,
seen it?
no, Shane has cooked it up. A lot of people don't agree with
Oh,
his
Shane.
model, but being able to model it is just
Shane.
something he was able to do.
Do you know who's Shane? Who's Shane?
Here, let's see if he can. Let's see if he answers.
Oh, I don't mean to bother the guy, but sure.
Uh,
I'd be really interested in that. Sorry if I'm like distracting you from a call or something, but I feel like in order to calculate those cycles, you would have to have a very strong understanding of the position of the sun and moon, or apparent position of the sun and moon, very, very well in their orbits around us.
that well, it's like a product of ratios. So it's not that you really need to know how big they are, how far they are, or anything like that. It's how it's basically within ratio of each other in order to make the model work on a flat surface.
Well, wouldn't you need to know the size and distance? Because like there are different types of eclipses, right? There's
Yeah,
ones
but
that
you
have
could put in any
totality, ones
size
that
as
don't.
long as there was appropriate amount of ratio to them. And it doesn't mean that it's true also, because you need to have all the mechanisms involved between each object to make the
Mhm.
observations like be confirmed. Instead of just like making it work without atmosphere, it could be totally different with atmosphere, which slightly changes some things.
Sure, slightly. Because I mean, typically it's directly above head, and when it's going through, even though it's going through a differing medium, it's going more or less directly down, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't make a huge difference.
Well, I mean, and medium is part of it too, right? Because part of the eclipse is sharp and the other side is blurry. So it is part of the situation at least.
I'm not sure what you meant by that.
Oh, yeah. If you go
Part of
look
it's
at
blurry.
the stills, yeah, if you look at the stills from the eclipse, one side of the eclipse is like a sharp shadow, and the other side's a blurry shadow.
Like, are you saying on the surface of the Earth, or when people are looking up
On the
from the
moon,
Earth?
and I think on the Earth too.
So when you're looking up at the moon and the sun, they look kind of blurry. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, I'm trying to find an image in the chat. Hold on.
Okay. I'm driving, so unfortunately I can't look at it.
Oh, well,
Sorry.
never mind then.
But I'm kind
Well,
of
how about
curious.
this, man? Like, what
Yeah.
brought you into the topic?
Um. I really want to understand the psychology of people such as yourself? Like, how do you come to these conclusions? And honestly, like, I think we're very similar in a way. Like, you want people to know the truth, right? Like, you think this is important that people should know this.
I mean,
Is
I
that a
think
fair
they
statement?
should. I think they should be aware of the philosophy behind it and where the evidence lies. But
Yeah.
whatever they decide, that's up to them. I don't really care.
No. Well, I would think that it's helpful to, like, all truth is good truth, you know? And I'm super confident that the Earth is a globe. And I think that it would help people if they understood that fact instead of, I don't
Why?
know, it seems like spinning wheels, like arguing
Well,
about
what? Let
or
me
trying to
ask you
convince people
something.
that it is.
What like tangible benefit do you think the globe serves you?
Serves me
What am I
specifically.
missing out? Yeah, exactly. Like what do you feel so strongly about that I'm
GPS.
missing out on? What am I missing out
Oh,
on that your
oh,
belief
that you
system?
can't also do.
Yeah. Actually, what benefits do yours have over mine?
Well, I could probably get into science a lot better. Because a lot of stuff's built around that model and understanding gravity and all that.
Do
So
you
I'd
think
probably
that
find that
we would
less
have to
difficult.
understand both sides to a greater degree to have the discussion though?
I'm sorry. Would you mind saying that again?
I mean, do you think I was born a flat earther or that I compared notes between both sides?
No, I think you were convinced into the position that you have.
I was convinced into the by who? By what? Now you
I
just
don't
made
know
it
the
more complicated.
specifics.
Okay.
What do you mean? I mean,
Why convinced? I
uh,
don't know, man. I think I just decided on my own.
sure. Yeah, maybe that's not the best word. That you looked at the available evidence and came to the conclusion that you came to. Is that better?
That's fair. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not that I don't understand where the globe makes its case. But I can also hold a multitude of understandings in that I don't think it is the case and explain those reasons. So, and for that, I would say that your argument's kind of null because it actually would mean I'm more like this whole idea about like you said my opportunity to get into science. Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah, that was one thing I said.
Well, wouldn't it mean that I'm probably even more interested? Like we have Taylor in the server here. She's into biology and she's working towards her degrees in higher education
Cool.
and she's a young earth
Good for her.
creationist. She's the
Were
science
you
actually supports the argument.
were you convinced that you're on a spinning globe, or did you come to that conclusion by yourself?
I mean, it's kind of semantics. I don't care which one you want to say. I believe this position is factually accurate. That's whichever
Well,
one. I don't care.
that's not the same, because
Mm.
who in his right mind would believe they're on a ball spinning at 1,000 miles an hour unless somebody told them?
Well, I mean, you don't feel it when you're on a plane going 500 miles an hour, right?
But you gotta admit that somebody put that in your mind, right? Because by default, when you step out of your house, do you feel like you're spinning on a giant ball?
No, it doesn't feel that way, but we can measure whether or not that is the case, right?
No, but the question is, unless somebody put that in your mind, right? Because you were asking a similar question. Unless
I
somebody
mean,
put that
yeah,
in
like,
your mind, because I'm trying to figure out how people like you think. The same way you're trying to,
sure.
the same way. So I'm trying to figure
So,
out the way you think. So, like, how did that motion come to you that you're spinning?
sure. I would put it this way. If I was given no information, I might very well think the Earth is flat. but I would also think that the sun went underneath the earth at night, and it would be night for everybody all at the same time. That being said, if
But
I did
that's not what I
understand
asked.
that,
That's not
well,
what I asked about the spinning.
I promise I'm getting there. If I wasn't given any information, but I did understand that there was not universal night, then I would still think the Earth is a globe, but I almost certainly would not come to the conclusion by myself that the Earth is spinning. I
Okay,
would
fair
think that
enough.
things were
That's an
going around
honest.
me.
Yeah, that's an honest. Yeah, somebody would have to put that. I feel confident to say silly motion in your mind or in our minds.
I mean, does it make sense that your body literally burns calories? There's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff like that atoms exist, but they're vastly, almost all empty space.
Hey,
99.9% of it
do
is
you know
empty
how they
space.
do you know how they
What's
measure
that?
calories? Do you know how they measure calories?
Isn't it like the units of heat it gives off or something like that when it's burned?
Yeah. Like they take it and they put it in water, and then however it makes like changes the temperature change. It's some kind of calibration. It's such a weird, it's such a weird thing.
Yeah, it's bizarre. You know, your body actually makes like 1.5 liters of water every day. It's kind of cool. But like, there's a ton of stuff about the
That's cool.
world to that's not super intuitive. Like your body making water every day. It's like if my body makes water, why would I get thirsty? There, we can't rely on our own senses and ability of investigation for everything. We got to rely on others. Like I don't think you guys dispute this fact at all, right?
Absolutely, but have you been keeping like an eye on what those others have been saying about what you believe in? Like in your cosmology, have you been keeping abreast of that?
I mean, I think that it's a little bit of a
Okay, hold on.
misnomer.
So it's some bullshit about the liter a day, I guess, right? I mean, I'm not seeing anything to back that up. I was just curious, but that seems like some bullshit, huh? That's
Maybe it's a
funny.
half liter. I might be misremembering that.
No, it's
But
not.
I got
It doesn't do that actually. I was just curious about that. I'm
how
always
much
interested.
water does your body produce? How much does it say it
It
produces a
says
day?
well, the body doesn't make a liter of water a day through metabolism. It does produce a small amount of water as a byproduct of nutrient processing, and it's essential to replenish water lost through daily activities. Saying basically your body doesn't make water. Yeah, your body doesn't make water. But that's
I'll have to look that up.
yeah, no,
I'm
it
gonna look
doesn't.
that up again.
Yeah, it's some bullshit. Just thought I thought it was interesting. You never know what people know. But yeah, it's some bullshit.
Sure, I'll look it up and make sure that I'm not saying incorrect
Yeah, no, I
things
was
in
just
this
trying to
moment.
figure
Thank
out
you.
if you're fun. I mean, that's cool if you're being fun. I'm just saying, like, you know, just check yourself. That's all.
Yeah, don't believe everything you read. In other words,
No, I don't think he thought that actually. Like, my thing is like, dude, you coming in here being witty and shit, and I like that. That's cool. That's admirable. But welcome to Flat Earth.
Well, I don't appreciate that, man. I'm being completely genuine with you guys. It's not like I come in here and say, "Oh, you guys aren't
Brother,
actually. You
brother,
know the
I,
truth."
I would even if you came in here trolling hard, I'd still be like, you're genuine. I don't care, man. So it's all good, bro. I'm here for the fun.
But do you understand that we didn't think you're lying? You weren't lying. That's what you thought, but
Yeah,
that wasn't factual.
that's fine. Like I don't really care to argue that point.
Well, no, either I could be like a dick and be like, well, haha, now see how much stuff you don't know and the earth is flat. Ha ha ha, like all the other stuff that's interesting in the world. But like, or I could be like, you thought you were being slick and trying to, it's a bunch of silly flat earthers. I'm going to tell them that the body makes a liter of blood and a bunch of other bullshit, which is hilarious to me, actually. I'm fucking here for it.
so is the shape the only thing you're interested in?
Uh, I'm not really sure what that question means. I like a lot of different things. I love science in general.
Because you seem like confident. You said I feel confident 100%. But I'm wondering
Oh,
how
I didn't
confident
say
are you?
100.
Okay, maybe you didn't say
Very
100, but
confident.
how confident are you in the rest of the model? Let's say we put the shape aside for a second.
Sure.
How confident are you in the rest of the model, your cosmological model?
In my understanding of the model, I would say middling, that the model is actually correct. Pretty high confidence, but I'm not an expert, so I'm certain that there are things that I misunderstand about what is being purported about the model, and I don't think it demonstrates much of anything if we armchair scientists say, "Oh, this is ridiculous. These experts in their field have definitely got this all wrong." Like I don't think that's a super beneficial conversation.
No, but that's not the road I'm going down.
Sure,
I'm going
sorry.
down the road that the scientists that you so much believe in, they're the ones that are saying that the cosmological model has to be redone. It's a problem.
Hey,
I guess you haven't caught up with the model, right? You're just going by old stuff because this is fairly new stuff.
I mean, I didn't make any statement about the model, so besides, I feel that the experts are very confident in it, and that
hey,
I
could I?
have a middling confidence
Yeah,
in it.
that means you haven't looked into it. No problem, bro. Like have a look into it now.
Could
What
I
the
say something?
experts
I
are
said,
saying about the model.
you mind if I jump in a sec?
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, brother. What's cool about this is like it's really not our take about like we're cool with most scientists. Like most scientists, when they write paperwork, they write it from the perspective of almost like a law, like legal type shit. Like if they have evidence that seems to suggest that it appears to be that this is what it might fucking be if we agree that this, that, and the other. You know what I mean? Like they write so eloquently. But then what you get is a bunch of people who have read the paperwork or read the Newsweek article that came out about the paperwork and fucking they take a religious perspective about it and they fucking won't relent it. The scientists never fucking said half the shit that fucking people believe to be true to be true. You know what I mean? That's what's fascinating about all this. And then you get some people who are really fucking convinced about what Newsweek said about it. And that's where our point of contention comes in is we're like, hey, what the fuck is going on? Because this is, it's like knowing the weight of Polaris. Like, do you think you know the weight of Polaris if you look it up on Wikipedia?
I don't think it would give you a weight. I would give you a mass, but that's being pedantic. I think
No, you're
scientists
right.
do have good
You're
reason
right.
to believe that they know the mass of Polaris.
But you
Did you
understand, like,
did you say it was reasonable?
Yeah, I think
yeah.
they have good reasons for their
Well, how about this?
position.
Just
Could you
checking.
agree that they have good reasoning for their estimation, right?
Yeah, of course. It's like
So, like,
everything's an estimation.
fair enough. Especially if you can't really go there and find out.
Uh,
Are we?
I mean, I would say everything's an estimation. Everything. We don't have exact truth for anything except for that we exist. That
Fair
you
enough.
individually exist. Everything else is just an approximation.
I like it. That sounds good to me. Fucking right.
But like, if I could speak to what you just said, I agree with a lot of that. I think that science communication, and especially like, I don't want to sound like stupid. I don't know what the best way of saying it, but like mainstream media outlets do a terrible job with science reporting, and they promote a lot of very pseudoscientific bullshit and want to sensationalize actual academic work to distort what it really does say and like the certainty that the results purport. And I think that's I hate it because it lowers people's confidence in the system working correctly. And that while there are bad scientists out there that fudge their results, that typically scientists are doing a great job in being fairly moderate with how they're reporting their outcomes and what the potential uses are for it, right? Like the media can get into it to try and sell newspapers or whatever actual thing they sell these days,
Well,
advertisements.
that gets a little touchy too with I guess some of us because like you look at it like where do they get their funding? How much scientific study is actually kind of built to promote whatever the fuck ideology they've been paid for to go do. There's a lot of that too, but I agree with you. I generally accept that, like, scientists are good folks and all the rest of it. I mean, some people may not, but like, I was gonna raise a point. Like, would you agree that, like, see, because I have a particular point of contention, and the globe is way more amenable to me if boats aren't disappearing over the curve of the Earth. And I think there's enough explanation to explain that phenomena using optics than there would be like actual obstruction and curvature of Earth. And I think these are weird conundrums the globe suffers. You know what I mean? It's
I was
pretty
kind of
much my thing.
curious if I could ask a little bit more about that. So, my understanding, like, obviously, you guys all have different opinions about stuff. No group's a monolith, but my understanding is of why you guys think that you guys agree that stuff disappears bottom up, of course, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. It's like, from the vantage point of, yeah, I mean, it becomes kind of this chicken and egg conversation of like, is the horizon real? You know what I mean? In a lot of ways, like, you could argue, or where is the horizon? Or, like,
Yeah.
the horizon is kind of a fictional fucking thing. But yeah, I would agree. A lot of us would agree that things are going to disappear from the bottom up. But,
My
I
understanding
think
of you,
there's a lot of explanation for that too.
sure, and like, let me know if this isn't your position, but my understanding of the common position is that essentially the light gets compressed lower down, and that all those layers, the reason you can't see the bottom of a boat or the bottom of a building that's far away is because those layers are compressed together so thin that you literally can't see them. Is that a fair assessment?
I think to some degree, yeah. I mean, I think there's also just a lot of activity in the atmosphere that far away, and then you've got things like Rayleigh's criterion, where it's like things kind of pixelate almost, if you will. Like it gets so far away, you're not gonna
Well,
really
they
have
blur into each
definition.
other.
Yeah, yeah, you're not gonna have definition, and these optical kind of things are much more reasonable when put against the idea that the earth is so big you wouldn't experience curvature or experience movement. You know what I mean? Like there's like these weird paradoxes in the globe, and that's just, I think, what a lot of us consider the most fascinating part about it, and people's choices on the same set of information.
Well, I'm curious. What do you mean by paradoxes? And sorry, I know I just asked you a question, but I'd like to explain something really quick because I hear this all the time, the 1,000 miles per hour thing, and that's at the equator. And the way I would like to explain it, and let me know if this makes sense to you guys, because I've never tried explaining it to somebody. But 1,000 miles an hour, how many seconds are there in an hour? 3,600, right? So you take that mile, you divide it by, you take that 1,000 miles an hour, you divide it by 3,600. You get less than one, right? You get point. What is it? Shit. Why can't I do the math? It's less. It's over a quarter. So like, let's just say 0.3. You get 0.3 miles. If you're traveling 0.3 miles in a second, do you know the amount of curvature that you're gonna like if you were staying flat on that tangent, how far above the ground you would be? It'd be something like 2 inches, but you're being pulled 9.8 meters per second downward. So that 2 inches of lift would feel insignificant to you. Is that like a paradox to you, the 1,000 miles an hour motion?
No, I
Is what
think
I
it's
just
well, no.
explained
I
it?
think I mean, I like, not only do I think that that's bullshit, but I also think that the way that they try to like say that you can measure or weigh gold differently, that's also bullshit. So
What
all
is
of
that?
that like effective like Coriolis and like centrifugal force and all that kind of shit like is complete and utter like useless information to me. Like let me ask you a question. If you're
Mhm.
building a house, right, and you've got a structure, and you put like another floor on top of the house, is the
Yep.
house that's holding the floor up? Is that exerting a force?
Sorry, say that last part again. I want to make sure I understood it.
Yeah, I'm just curious because like a lot of people that have noticed of this misconception. I'm just curious, like I'm just saying, like, let's say you're building a 2-level house and you put the first floor in, right? And you put your
Yep.
floor on top of this first level for the second floor. Is the first floor, is it a force that's keeping up the second floor?
Yeah, like you're saying, does the frame keep the floor from falling down through to the first floor?
Right, and is that
Yes.
a force?
Uh, like I mean, semantics. Uh, I would say yes, because there is a force pushing it down, gravity, or whatever you want to call it. There is a downward acceleration of some kind going on. So there has to be a reciprocal force so that it doesn't do that thing, right?
Right. Well, actually, technically, no. It's just a load-bearing wall. It just bears a load. It's not exhibiting a force. It's not doing anything like that. It's just exhibiting a load. It's just holding on to it. It's a load-bearing wall. There's no forces like, you know what I mean? So our explanation is the idea of just like relative density, or at least mine is. Relative density explains all of this, like, the idea, like the idea of like forces, and you got to whatever. These are, to me, are what the Globe or the French revolutionaries, right, who gave us all this shit. Those people, like, they answered questions that nobody fucking asked. So it's like all this like centrifugal tangents and fucking whatever, and then pseudo, because centrifugal is like a pseudo force or whatever they say, or that tangent. So like it just seems all like answering a question that nobody asked, and then trying to fucking pigeonhole everything around that. It's weird, dude. It's fucking weird.
Sure. Um,
You know what I mean? Because like you could say
I
that,
mean, I think
like
that,
this. We're going.
no, it's cool. Go ahead.
No, you're good, brother. I'm busy anyway. Go ahead.
I got some little ones myself. But no, like I think it's important to try and figure out things that we don't know, even if we don't know what the benefit is. Like I think you would agree that it is an excellent thing that we understand electromagnetism because we have phones that work now, and that's pretty fantastic, right?
Forgive me, man. Can you say that last part again?
Yeah, of course. I think that you would agree that it's finding out what electromagnetism, we didn't understand what it was, we didn't know what benefit it would give us, but it's fantastic that we figured it out because now we have cell phones and all sorts of other awesome shit.
Oh yeah, no doubt, man. I'm all for the fucking advancement of like technology. Like what do you think about
Yeah.
the idea? Like, what do you think about the idea? Because helium rises, right? That imagine if there's like, imagine, how there's like, you ever seen like those pictures of how oil density kind of holds itself? Like, it'll find its relative density, right? So imagine if like you have water, then you have air, then imagine if you had like helium above us. So like helium was like a
Yeah, you're
lighter
talking about
shade.
a
You know what I mean? So
density
like those
column.
are, yeah, yeah. And imagine that continued up, and like that's actually what we witness. Like who knows where that exists? But then think of like solar luminescence and shit. I've been calling it Dios luminescence. Like in the beginning was the word kind of shit, and then like the word is the lights in the sky, which would be the bioluminescence kind of reference. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think there's a lot more to it, man, than just like these fucking stars are billions and trillions of light years away, and you just mold on a rock. I think the philosophical value of flat Earth is way more potent than the globe, at least for me.
I find that an interesting argument that I think that if you're an atheist, you're going to think that your worldview gives you consolation and it makes you happier. And I think if you're a Christian, you're going to think that your worldview, like, we all kind of take our own worldviews and say that, like, essentially because we hold them, that it makes us happier. and that other people should kind of think the way that we do. And I think it's just an innate thing in humans, right? To
Right, but
essentially have
right,
main character syndrome.
but I have a counter to that though. Well, see, because if you
Sure.
look at it like today's society is very nihilistic. Would you agree?
No, I would strongly disagree with that.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you take a look at like, well, I mean, in what, I share that sentiment. So in a way, I'm like, I can't argue against what you just said. I'm very positive myself.
Boom, there we go. Common ground.
However, what do you call it? Like, there's a lot of depressed people in the world. And I think that kind of stems from a logical deduction. It's like, people who are intelligent understand, like, I think anyway, that cosmology directly affects your philosophy, right? So if you're just like, there's no other outlook other than you're just like mold on a fucking rock, being hurled through space, and there's no morality. It begins like lack of meaning becomes a thing. And if you look like over history, when people like, let's say, had faith or had some kind of, I don't know, like, and if you tie it into cosmology, the attitude of people back then was like heroic, which I don't know, maybe I'm mistaken, but I'm just saying, I think that the philosophy of a flat Earth is like, it's just more enriching,
Sure. So
and also,
what?
yeah, go on.
So what if I told you? And I don't actually feel like I don't feel this way because I feel like it's. Anyways, you'll understand what I mean. What if I told you that believing in the globe Earth is so uplifting because the universe is so much bigger than just this tiny planet. There's so much more to explore. There's this huge galaxy out there and galaxies upon galaxies, and understanding this like really enriches your life. And it makes you feel a lot better than the people that believe in this tiny little pathetic pizza planet with a salad bowl on top.
It's not
Like,
tiny. Who told you? Who told you it's a tiny pizza pan?
No. We're
wrong.
just talking. Hold on. We're just talking shit right now. We're just talking shit. Hey, yo, what do you
I'm
call-
joking. I
would say,
don't feel that
I
way.
would say, no. Check it out. I would say this. I would say that, yo, you're entitled to that position, and that position makes sense to me. And I really do. Like, a lot of people are, like I said, like some people like are very condemning. You know what I mean, to flat Earth in a lot of ways, and that's why I think like people have such hard resistance to anyone trying to argue against it. But I would say ultimately, and you're entitled to that. Like some people say, "Oh, that's the fingerprint of God," because we're just floating through space. You know what I mean? Like I get it. Like you can turn that right on its head for me, or my argument. But I just think that trusting my senses makes more sense than not trusting my senses. And I think there's just a paradox in life where there's a differentiation between the soul and the body, and there's a differentiation between the sky and the earth. Right? I think it's have you heard of dark polarity? You know. I just think there's a lot more to it, man.
You're hot miking, Isa.
Sorry, I gotta hop off for a minute. I gotta call the wife. Thanks, Aisha. It's nice to talk. All you guys, thanks for talking to me. I'll be back in a little bit.
Later, man.
Dark polarity, huh?
What's your thoughts, Isa, on the Eötvös effect, where a weight moving eastward will weigh differently than that same weight moving westward?
Well, I would ask you, what's the difference, the measurable difference?
Well, let me look it up. There's formulas on Wikipedia.
Sure, just do it. Just do it for me. Show me how fucking infinitesimal the fucking difference is, and how meaningless it is. Please.
Uh, okay, it looks like a difference of about let's see, about 5 gram, about 1% difference flying east versus west in Australia.
How much of 1%?
Well, I just posted an image where a guy took a scale and a 500-gram weight on an airplane flying east to west and west to east, and it looks like According to his little chart, the difference was about 5 grams out of 500 grams. Are you saying it was just instrumental error and that if I were to do this with the correct instrument, I would find no difference?
Well, I think like if you're taking gold somewhere, they're gonna measure it pursuant to their weights and measurements where they are, right?
Well, this doesn't have to do with location. This has to do with velocity, east or westward velocity, changing the weight of something while in motion.
Well, I'll tell you, is it like how did he determine? How was the test again? Forgive me, I can't look at the.
Oh,
Was he on a
okay.
was he on a plane or something?
Yes, yes. He took one of those little 500 gram digital scales that has a resolution of 100th of a gram,
All right. Well,
and
okay.
and
So like, is there a real world example of this? Like where someone's on a different latitude, like or, you know what I mean, like in east to west, that they're measuring east to west, or because I just find that like from what I've understood is like the difference from the North Pole to the equator, it's like 0.09 or it's really a fraction of a percentage.
that's not the Eötvös effect, and that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm
Yeah, I don't
talking
know.
about is,
Well, too. I find it interesting. That's cool. If he's on a plane and that's the experiment, that's pretty cool.
but what would cause something to weigh more or less based strictly on whether it's moving eastward or westward?
Well, I imagine the scales on the internal. I wonder what he used to. What kind of scale was it? Was it a digital one? Was it a?
Yes,
Um,
it was a little
okay,
digital electronic scale with a
so I,
maximum weight of 500 grams and a resolution of 100th of a gram.
so maybe it's like picking up the fact that it's going fucking 300 to 500 miles an hour east or west. I don't know.
Right, but he used the same scale with the same weight in the same airplane going one direction. Well, actually, I can't tell you for sure that it was the same airplane, but it was the same scale and the same weight, going one direction and going the other direction. So,
Yeah, I would say that's instrumental issue, because of the speed or something to do with the travel. But I just don't see is there a correlation to the latitude? I mean, like to longitude? Like, is there like, I'm just curious how that like correlates. But I mean, it's an interesting experiment, no doubt.
but there would be a correlation to latitude because um, if it's caused by Earth rotation, then if you are flying, over the pole, your 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 movement would not be adding to or subtracting from Earth rotation. If you're at the equator, that would be then the maximum effect where your plane's motion would be either adding to or subtracting to the Earth's centrifugal force that was exerting on the weight.
Well, I think it's got more to do with like the weights, or I mean, I don't know, but I don't think like an ounce of gold over here is going to be an ounce of gold wherever you go weigh it at. Because they're going to calibrate their scales accordingly. I don't know. It just doesn't. It's like a moot point to me. I mean, like, yeah, I guess it would work, but I don't.
Well, it's
Because
a
he had like
fluid.
he had a hold on, he had a vast difference in his calculation, though, right? Like 5 grams off of how many? Off
Yeah, it
100
was
grams.
no a
And
500
what's
gram
the
weight.
okay?
I should say 500 gram mass weighed 5 grams more going one way than going the other way, which is it's only 1%, but since
Oh, then
this
going the other way. Oh, that's it. That is. I mean, yeah, I guess that's interesting. But I mean, I'd be like, oh, well, it could be wind. I mean, I really don't know, but that's interesting. Fair enough. It just doesn't make me feel like it justifies like I'm spinning or like the Earth is spinning. It doesn't have that impact on me though. But I mean, it's evidence to your point, but in some sense. But I just doesn't. I find it not convincing for the whole grander argument. the whole dark polarity thing? But Jesse, well, yeah, what do you think about the whole dark polarity thing? But Jesse, or something, if I'm not mistaken.
What's dark polarity?
It's like what explains why the Earth or why the stars look like they're curving over the Earth. You know,
Is that like a flat Earth thing?
uh, maybe it's globe friendly, but
Oh,
just
neutral.
just yeah, it's just the idea that like there's this effect that's happening, that we're calling dark polarity.
Are you saying that it even happens on the stars at the equator?
Especially at the stars on the equator.
So are you saying that they actually move? They don't move linearly. They move as a curve.
Well, yeah, like have you ever seen like I mean I always think of it like like when you put like iron filings within a magnetic field, they kind of they go into it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So you'd have like dual kind of like an effect of like dual like, rotation.
Uh, I,
You
I
know?
don't. I can't say I've seen them rotate.
Well, it's like, that like well, yeah, fair enough. I mean, you don't see the stars move.
No. The filings, the iron filings.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah,
like
no, yeah,
half a
obviously.
percent.
Well, it's just a simplified like visual of what I'm
Illustration.
referring
Yeah.
to.
Which would make
So like electromagnetism could like explain.
1%.
You might be hot, Mike.
1%.
John,
1%.
maybe
Oh,
not.
sorry. I don't know why that happens. Swear I don't do it.
Yeah.
That was funny. What? I'm sorry. Go ahead. What, so you're saying that there are how well does the analogy hold to the magnetic filings? So I feel like I don't understand what you're saying.
Um, I don't know. I don't know exactly. It's like again, it's kind of like imagine like a layer of helium that's like has illuminated points within it, and that you would have these illuminated points, and they would appear that they're a million miles away, or appear through your observations that they're curving, but maybe they're not. So like any discrepancy of like or that necessitates like a Haversine formula or anything like that is actually just calculating dark polarity, not curvature.
Well, I mean, the Haversine definitely is calculating curvature. It has a radius value, so I don't know how that would relate.
Well, no, that's what I mean. It's a curvature value based on like the position of stars. You know what I mean? Because that's how you're finding your GPs at any particular snapshot in time, and then you're placing them on what you conceive to be or would imagine to be a globe, but in reality, it's not. It's like the Haversine formula is just actually correcting what your apparent, what is apparent to you, so that you can calculate. You know what I mean? That calculation is in direct response to the optics. You know what I mean? That's why people
Uh,
are necessitating the Haversine formula because they're seeing or predicting that a star is over a certain location, and that's what they're seeing it as. It's just a reevaluation of the, those kinds of methods. Not that they're wrong, but their cause is possibly wrong. The presumed need for why that they do them is wrong.
Couldn't a dome just explain it? theoretically.
I mean, yeah.
I
It's
don't
like
think
what's
it
But I
could.
don't, but I don't know if a dome makes. I don't know, man. I feel like I'm fascinated with the idea that like if you're gonna think that the universe is infinite, that's cool. But I think of like the Earth as the floor of it. And I don't know how that works out. Maybe wherever there's a sun, there's a pocket where the ice doesn't form. I don't fucking know. But there's something like wild. And the stars trying to explain the Earth, I think, is a conundrum the ancients like readily fucking understood to be weird. But I don't think they were as limited as like the French revolutionaries who were trying to kill any notion of the monarchy, including God. You know what I mean? So I'm like real reluctant. I'm basing my philosophy on a bunch of people like that. Right?
I just meant in terms of what's curved.
Oh yeah, no. I'm fully open for. I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? I think anyone. I think in fact anyone trying to tell you that they know what it is like trying to tell you what it's like after you die. But I'm open to the dome. You know. What are your thoughts on it?
Mm, yeah, I think you can interpret it either way, like what we're seeing.
Do you guys recognize that there is a center of rotation in the southern hemisphere? Is that something that you guys can agree on
Yeah,
for
but it's
the
kind
night
of.
sky?
Oh yeah, no. It's just yeah. That's why I was getting to like the magnetic filings because there's like
I have
center points. And poles.
it actually mirrors the north pretty closely.
Well, Polaris is definitely not there. There's no constellation in the north that's in the south. I, I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Yeah, there's a wild theory that they like people believe it's like a projection in the south of the north. I don't know how I feel about that, but there's that does like the idea that like Sigma Octantis is just like a weird reflection or breakup of the light of Polaris. I don't fucking know.
I mean, that seems
But
pretty
but
easily checkable, right?
Sigma Octantis isn't really a star. You know that, right?
I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm not really an astronomer.
Well, yeah, no, I'll tell you, it's all good. I'm not trying to hide it from you, but like it's a
Sure.
collection of stars. You know what I mean? So it's not really actually one star. It's just they call it Sigma Octantis because it's like eight stars. So it's
In
like,
alignment.
or I don't know if they're in alignment, but they look like they look like there's allegedly so far away it looks like it's a one star kind of a thing.
Sure.
And it's interesting too because both actually kind of circle around like a void point. There's like a point of like a void. So neither one of them are actually at the hub, if you know what I mean.
I'm putting a picture of what.
Whoever was talking just cut off.
Yeah, that was
You
my
sent in
dog.
the picture.
Hmm.
Okay. But I'm kind of curious, like, if you guys recognize that there is a center of rotation for the south, and the further south you go, the higher that point gets in the sky. And eventually, hypothetically, you could stand right underneath that point, right?
Do you have a video of it?
Of the southern hemisphere.
Well, hold on. We're not gonna.
Yeah.
I'm not
Sorry,
gonna.
the southern stars.
Questioning
Hmm.
its existence isn't even the point. Like I would, or at least myself, like I would grant you that it exists. Do you
Sure.
know what I mean?
I'm
Like,
just curious. I just haven't seen it really. I'm not saying it doesn't. Like from the very middle.
From the very middle. Oh, like directly underneath.
Hmm.
Okay. But I mean, what would make that consist like be like if there is no the edge of known world because it'd be 90 degrees. south, right?
I can't hear you. It kind of broke up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you guys think that it's that the Earth is a circle and the outer ring is Antarctica? If you do
Is that
that,
me?
No, it's him.
you guys will deny that.
Hey, we can't hear you, buddy.
Try
Uh,
reconnecting, Finnegan.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Very good.
Oh, okay, that is better.
Yep.
Awesome. So I don't know if any of you guys subscribe to a map, but like if it was a Gleason's map, you'd be at all these different points, drastically different points if you went from the North Pole and just had to due south in different directions. But it seems like it's rotating around one point. And I'm not aware of any demonstration that I've seen where you can have that singular point of rotation and it not be a single spot.
No. I mean, I can see that. Like, it seems like it makes a lot of sense. Like, you know what I mean in that sense.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you saying that.
I just think there's more to the story. I don't know if it's. I don't know, man.
How did they come up with the idea that it's like pear-shaped?
Measuring the radius value. So it's so close to being a perfect sphere that like effectively if you had it and it was this huge ball, like a 10-foot diameter ball, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And if you actually had like all the mountains on there, all the topography, it would still essentially you wouldn't be able to tell because the variation's so minor.
The adjective of pear-shaped was a super exaggeration because it's so slight, it's like impossible to even measure it terrestrially. It was demonstrated in the tracking the orbits of satellites. So it's really, and from a terrestrial standpoint, it is what it is. The biaxial ellipsoid. The pear shape would make it a triaxial ellipsoid of such insignificance that it's not taught hardly anywhere except in orbital mechanics.
Yeah, because he mentioned the radius value, but that wouldn't make sense because the radius value would apply to a circle, right? Not a pear.
Well, there's the average radius, and then there's the polar diameter and the equatorial diameter. Those are different. You average that out, and you get something you can work with for navigation purposes where, a little bit of error doesn't really matter much because it is a little bit of error if you use an average. And then there's a couple of different ways to figure that radius. One is a radius of a sphere that has the same volume as Earth. Is the average
McFingland?
So yeah, there's a couple different ways, but it's all around 3960, give or take like 1 mile.
I got it. I was just trying to ask him for a clarification on measuring the radius value.
I also had a question. If it isn't a ball, why are all the pictures so rounded if it's supposed to be pear-shaped or oblate spheroid?
Well, Scott Manley did a very good take on that, and he brought up several examples. And it's when you look at a satellite photo of the Earth that looks all nice and perfect round, if under higher integrity, it's about 2 pixels different.
Okay, McFingland, did you hear my question?
How come everything is also, you guys always make excuses for everything instead of like a real explanation?
No, he was saying that it's so minor that the human eye cannot perceive it when you're seeing the entirety of it.
What were you
You'd
saying
have to
about
measure
measuring the
pixels,
radius?
literally.
Can you clarify what you meant by that?
Yeah, you can. I'm not so familiar with the particulars. This gentleman, was it John?
Shubo.
No,
Uh,
yeah, Scott Manley
seems
did a
like he,
a
Scott.
deep dive on it, and it's at a satellite photo scale. It's only a couple of pixels, which, unless you're going to count 8,000 pixels across and notice that you're a couple short in the in one direction, yeah, you're not going to see it.
How big does that reflect a difference? Like how much bigger is it at the bottom?
You're saying percentage? It's 14 miles wider at the equator than it is top to bottom
That's in radius. Yeah, so and it's like 0.3%.
radius.
I mean, like at the bottom versus the top.
Well, the
Point
bottom
three?
is, no, we're not dealing with bottom and top. You have the poles and the polar diameter, and then you have the equatorial diameter. The equatorial diameter is the 28 miles, 14-mile radius, larger than the polar diameter or polar radius.
I mean,
So,
north versus south pole.
in 4,000 and 39 and 3,960 miles, plus or minus 14 miles. Yeah.
No,
Not-
shoot.
not-
She's asking. She's asking what is the difference between the north and the south, and I don't think that there's any appreciable difference between the radius at the North Pole as compared to the South Pole.
Not significantly. Not that we, like I said, that goes to the pear shape, where it could be a couple of meters different.
Couple of meters.
Yeah, that's how slight we're talking. That's why when they said pear shape, that was so hyperbolic that to see somebody put a graphic look of drawing a fruit means they have never looked into the numerical values at play.
Flatter at the South Pole. It says 150 meters greater. Not what did you say, 3? This one says 150.
I
And then
I said a few because I didn't know the exact value at the top of my head, but I knew it was slight. And 100 meters, yeah, that is still pretty damn slight.
yeah, 150, yeah. Okay, I just looked it up. Got it.
100 meters over what, 6.5 million meters. Do that math, and you'll end up with a point and a lot of zeros.
I wish we can get those pictures.
What pictures?
The ones with the pixels.
Oh,
Totally
Scott
figured it.
Manley? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll put Scott Manley for you.
Someone posted that just the other day here too.
So do you guys think there is a South Pole?
Don't you need a different compass down there?
Yeah, you actually do, because the way that a compass works in the north, it's slightly weighted. It's weighted on one side so that when you're getting closer to the magnetic pole, it'll try to pull the magnet down into the ground. So it weights it on the other side, on the back side. So if you go to the south with a compass from the north, the weight's on the wrong end because it'll try to point towards the southern magnetic pole because you're closer to that. But I mean, you wouldn't use a compass to get to the South Pole anyways. You could. It would just be kind of crazy.
Why can't we just fly over it?
Well, I mean, people want to go there. There's a research center there.
Like flying over it, you know? Like the flight pass, whatever. That'd prove
Well,
it.
if you pay enough, you could. Just like the North Pole, if you went to the local airlines and says, "Oh, I want to book a flight over the North Pole," it's gonna be a special chartered flight because they don't fly a routine flight over that either. So you can, but it costs you.
How much?
I
Is
don't
it
know,
even
but
possible? Has anybody done it?
the One Last Orbit team claims to have done it.
No, like on a plane.
No, the One Last Orbit project was on an airplane. It was
Oh, okay.
a polar circumnavigation effort, and they went. They had to do multiple fueling stops, of course, but they went all the way around pole to pole and back to the first pole. They were trying for a new world record or something.
Did they beat it?
Yep.
Is that in the Guinness?
I don't know, but you can Google One Last Orbit, I think it was called.
And there was that global expedition where a British team set out on one longitude and did circumnavigate along that same longitude, which involved trucks, boats, sled dogs, and it took them a couple of years, but they stuck to the one longitude and went all the way around. Well documented. And
But
we do have polar orbiting satellites, so then the satellites that were feeding Union Glacier, they're in a near polar orbit because you notice there's no relay towers and no ocean subterranean ocean cable or sub ocean cables running there for the internet feed. So there's plenty of evidence of that. So in satellite navigation, I mean, come on, without satellite navigation, but now we'd be kind of screwed. You get into a 10-hour plane flight, and you know darn well it's going to be satellite navigated with a proper Great Circle route, with no question on the distance.
Whenever I look up One Last Orbit, it talks about going around the sun.
maybe I got the term wrong. Let me look. I'm so sorry. One More Orbit. I do apologize.
Okay. I can't find that either.
Put in circumnavigation polar into the search, and then you can't miss it.
When did it happen?
It looks like July of 2019.
Nobody heard about it.
Would that be interesting news to you?
Hold on, I can't really talk right now.
Yep, that's fine.
Hey Jesse, check out the picture I just put.
All right.
Says that was their flight path.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Did they cross the pole?
Yes, they crossed the pole. They turned slightly at the pole so that they would take a more direct route to their next fueling station. It just looks like a circle like that because they've got the map all stretched out to so they can display it flat. But let me fire up Google Earth. I think I put it on Google Earth.
Okay.